Okay, so now we're back to writing equations, but the way the equation is written here, because I don't have anything added or subtracted with the x or the y, that means they're both understood zeros. That would be like your center being located at the origin, at the point 0, 0. So they're wanting you to take this, which is located at the origin, and shift it to the left 2, okay? So if you're going to shift this to the left, anytime that you take a point that's on a circle and you move it to the left or you move it to the right, then that's going to change your x coordinate. So this is going to change your x. So moving left and right changes your x coordinate. So you've got, since it changes x, that's going to affect what we write right here where the x is. Now going to the left, you think of that as being a -2. But remember, your standard form is x minus. So actually, even though left we think of as being negative, when we go to put that in our standard form, it's going to end up being the opposite, of kind of what our first instinct would be. So left, you think of -2 or subtracting 2, but yet when you put it into your equation, you're going to have to do the opposite. Therefore, you're going to end up with +2. Now, since you're only moving to the left, which only changes x, that would mean that the y squared part of this is not going to change, okay? And the translations that we're doing are not going to change the size of the circle, which means your radius is not going to change. We're not changing the size of the circle, we're just changing its location, okay? All right, let's look at the second example here. Okay, so again, I've got a left or a right here. Of course, I did a left, so now I'm going to do a right. So this is going to change x, okay? But going to the right, we're going to think of as being a +5, okay? So going left you think of as negative, going to the right you think of as being positive. Now, this time we're going to go down. So if you're shifting anything up or down on your coordinate plane, it's your y value that ends up changing. So an up or a down is going to end up changing y, and you're going to think of going down as being a negative, whereas if it were up, you're going to think of that as being a positive, okay? So now let's take this and put it into our equation. So the 5 is going to have to be used here with the x, because remember, going right, left or right changes x. But you do the opposite. So here we think of right as +5, but then we're going to have to write it as -5. All right, up and down changes y, so that means I'm going to incorporate the 4 here. Since we think of down as being -4 or going down 4, but yet when I put it into my equation, I have to do the opposite. So instead of being negative, you actually end up with it being positive. But again, your radius is not going to change because you're not changing the size of the circle. So that would be how you're going to do your translations. Now we're only going to do up, down, left, right. There's not going to be any other translations you'll have to worry about. Okay, write the equation of a circle that passes through the given point and has a center at the origin. Now I have written down here the distance formula, because we are going to end up having to use the distance formula to help us out. Now, because our center passes through the origin, then what I know about my circle already is that I'm just going to have x squared plus y squared, because if it goes through the origin, the center's at the origin, that's the point 0, 0. So me just putting x squared, remember, means this is an understood 0 that's either added or subtracted here. I just don't have to write it. And then I also have an understood 0 here. So what I've got to figure out, though, is what is this radius, okay? Now, I know where my center is. My center's at the origin. The point that's given to you, your circle passes through this point. So this point's on the outside edge of your circle. So if you know the distance from the origin to this point, then that's going to be your radius, because your origin is your center. So remember, radius is the distance from the center to the point on the outside edge, okay? And we know that the center is at 0, 0. So let's just go ahead and write down 0, 0 here. And this is where your distance formula is going to come in. If we know the distance from here to here, that will be our radius, okay? So using your distance formula, okay, so we'll have x2. So I'll just use this as the x2. So that means I would have 0 minus -6 squared plus, and then I would have 0 minus -4 squared. Okay, so this is 6. 6 squared is 36. This is 4. 4 squared is 16. Okay, so if I add 36 and 16, I get 52. So I have square root of 52. Now, this is your radius. This is r, okay? Now, back to my equation. I've already figured out this is exactly what this part's going to look like. And again, that's because my center is at the origin. So I have x squared plus y squared equals. Now, what I need here is r squared. What I found here, though, is just r. So that means I've got to take the square root of the 52 and square it, because this is r and I need r squared. So my answer then is x squared plus y squared is equal to 52.